Now, everywhere you look for information, you're probably getting a pretty similar topic. The CS2 market has crashed, absolutely, and there's no denying it for some specific items that are down 15-20%, but not every item is like that. In fact, some items are actually up in the past month, but I want to focus in specifically on why this happened, and it's not as simple as you may think. Although the player numbers are down, that's actually not the strongest indicator of how we can tell the market is in a little bit of a turmoil. In fact, we want to look at the specific items that are seeing these increases and decreases, and we're going to be getting a lot more valuable information. SkinSwap is today's sponsor, and they're also sponsoring you with a free bonus for signing up with the first link in the description. They're the premier place for CSGO and Rust skins, with a massive trading site and a top-of-the-line marketplace, offering you the most competitive rates out there and a massive 40% bonus when you're using that link in the description. Combine that with their top-of-the-line selling feature with many payout options, and their trading feature legitimately taking you just about a minute, and there's no reason not to sign up with that first link in the description. Now, when we look at the 1 year for rare case, we start to see a very significant development form, and that's the fact that these are up tremendously compared to pretty much every other asset. Talking about the cheaper rare cases specifically, we're seeing 500 to 600% increases over the past year, which is absolutely massive, especially inside of this specific niche. Now, with that being said, these are also one of the commodities that have pretty much not gone down at all, especially in the short term here. Now, if we want to look at the month graph, we can see a lot of them are down potentially 1 to 2%. I mean, they're pretty much all break even if they're down anything, which is extremely important because comparing it to some of the other items we're going to talk about later, these ones have gone up the most and gone down the least, which is extremely crucial for you to remember when we get to the end of the video. Now, when we're talking about the Paris capsules, these ones are a little bit of a different story. That's because they're just on a different trajectory. They're on their own time, and especially considering they just have started to see some growth to begin with, I don't really expect a lot of this growth to even be sustainably continued. That's because a lot of these are just way too liquid in their current format, and the fact is, when we're starting to see the overall market decrease, even if these are one of the commodities that should be increasing long term, they're not going to be because of the liquidity of this specific item. You'll see later the point I'm trying to get at, but basically the Paris capsules theoretically should be increasing during this period just because of the way they are, and yet they're probably going to end up decreasing because of the liquidity on this item, just because the supply is so massive here in the short term, and a lot of people who end up investing into items are actually doing it for the short term. When they don't even realize it, they end up selling off at a loss and then repeating the cycle over and over. Now, the one area that has continued to prosper again and again is going to be the Stockholm and Antwerp capsules. If we want to look at the 1 year for a significant amount of these, obviously the Antwerp ones are up quite significantly, considering a year ago they were sitting at maybe 20 cents, but even the Stockholm, for the most part, the capsules with demand, have seen some pretty massive increases as well. And this is extremely important because this is exactly what we theoretically expect Paris to do, but because the supply on Paris is so massive, it's probably not going to end up seeing anywhere close to the growth like this, especially in the shorter period here. Now, these capsules are definitely ones that are going to be exactly what the point I'm trying to get at, because we can see they continue on their trajectory, they have their ups and their downs, but overall they're decreasing in supply out there because people are opening them up. There is demand for people to open these up, and therefore that fundamentally makes them a very valuable investment for exactly what we're trying to get at. Now, focusing in on collection skins, we're starting to see a pretty significant increase for a lot of these, especially over the 1 year period. These are up absolutely massively. I mean, I cannot understate the amount of growth that we're seeing in this area over the past year, which is the complete opposite from the regular skins market, but we'll get to that in just a quick second. Now, when we're focusing in on these items specifically, the only differences between this and a normal skin is the fact that these ones are discontinued, meaning there's no more supply being created, especially from Valve. Obviously you have trade ups, but still, this is extremely important because this is one of the fundamental factors we're talking about in today's video, and that's the fact that the supply on it is absolutely known, or at least regulated. I mean, we can talk about rare cases, they're still 1% of the drop pool. Same with collection skins, you can still make them through trade ups, but it's such a regulated finite area that theoretically the end is in sight, and that's extremely crucial for these specific items and the future of their growth. Now, focusing in on the regular skins market, we have seen the complete opposite from all of these items we have mentioned. We've seen a pretty significant decrease. When people are talking about the overall market crashing, they're focusing in on specifically skins, and a lot of these cheaper-ish skins, or budget skins I would say, generally speaking, follow the general trend of some of these higher tier skins as well. We haven't seen the massive $1,000 losses on your Op Asimov, but we have seen a relatively similar decrease to pretty much the entire skins market as a whole, and this is not too unexpected. We talk about player numbers, this is the one area where player numbers do crucially matter. If people aren't playing the games, and considering a lot of skins are not consumable, they're just going to be traded around, and once they're done with the game, they're just going to sell the skin. It's not too really hard to understand why exactly skin prices are decreasing and why a lot of other areas are not seeing this same decrease. Now, this comes back to the fundamental question of what items should you absolutely not invest into, and these are going to include pretty much everything that doesn't even have some sort of consumable aspect for me personally. Now, the reason why I've been so successful inside of CSGO investing is because I'm investing into items that have demand, but they also have a lowering supply. See, the major indicator for a lot of success of a lot of items inside of CS2 is actually part of their supply. If they have a decreasing supply, you're going to be on a much stronger trajectory moving forward to actually end up profiting off of that item. It's not guaranteed by any means because the demand is extremely important as well, but if you've got a lower supply or a lowering supply of an item, it can absolutely exponentially increase the growth that item is going to see as long as the demand stays consistent for that items. Therefore, it's going to be no reason to invest for me personally into skins or agents, just because the only reason these items would go down in supply even the slightest is people getting backbanned or leaving the game. That's not something I want to personally invest into, and it's something that I think is, relatively speaking, pretty inefficient to invest into. Now, getting to the question, why are we seeing a crash right now? We're seeing a crash right now because of the action 6 months ago. We can obviously see when CS2 came out, we saw a massive increase for pretty much everything on the board, but the items that were able to sustain that growth were consumable because they had constant demand and the supply went down. Now compare that to some of your play skins. Look at the AK-47 Redline right here. We saw a massive 100% increase because CS2 was announced in March, April time. Now this is very important because nothing had fundamentally changed about this item, which means that slowly and surely we saw a lot of that growth disappear and correct down to the normal price we were expecting for that market. However, remember that a lot of the people that came in just to play CS2 or when CS2 was released have ultimately left the game at this point. That's extremely important because we're starting to see the player counts fall off, which means the price is going to fall off because these two items are roughly correlated. The demand inside of the skin is starting to go away a little bit because people are not interested in playing the game right now, which is a fundamental problem we're seeing all across the board. But when we invest into items that are consumable and decreasing in supply, we can partially evade some of this risk, which is why it's so crucial for you to be investing into all specific areas and intricacies of the market. Now, how can you win off of this specifically? Well, the first thing is not selling off your investments is going to put you at a very significant advantage. That's because a lot of people right now are getting scared because they don't understand why the market is decreasing and they only see that the market is actually decreasing. And when I say market, I'm referring generally to those play skins as those are the most popular items people look at. But this is very important because a lot of people end up selling off their investments during this period. If you're going to hold on to your investments, you're going to be in a very significant position because when we start to see growth, it happens out of nowhere and it happens extremely quickly. And this is exactly why, because people start getting FOMO and investing into those items because they previously sold them and they're buying back into them for a more expensive price. At the end of the day, don't sell off your investments just because you're scared. Now, what should you do? In my honest opinion, I think you should either be buying or holding during this time. If you want to buy, go ahead. Obviously, we don't know what the player count is going to do next, but it's probably going to be a rough indicator of how the general market is feeling. But if you want to go ahead and hold on, that's going to be the most beneficial position, especially if you've already got your items to put yourself in that best position to profit. But that's all I got with you guys so much for watching. Hope you're great.